I'm going to introduce Victoria, executive assistant, and Ahmed, who is also part of Soul Care, and his position is partnership manager and physician relation specialist. So they were going to filling out the spot for Pradip today, and I'm going to ask both of them to join us and to start this final keynote of the day. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. We, of course, have a very diverse and broad team across the world. Victoria is my colleague based out of Hungary today. Victoria, if you'd like to give a brief introduction.
Hello, colleagues. My name is Victoria. I'm executive assistant of Pradip Goel, and today I will support Ahmed with our deck.
Thank you, Victoria. My name is Ahmed. I'm the partnership manager and physician relations specialist. I come from a clinical healthcare background with my extensive background in a variety of clinical settings. I've worked side by side with clinicians, para-healthcare professionals, completed medical school, but I've chosen to pursue my background in business and actually bridging the gap between technology and healthcare. We're tremendously excited to be here with you today on behalf of our CEO, Mr. Pradip Goel, and we're looking forward to discuss with you and present to you how SolveCare and how the SolveCare platform will allow users to actually publish their own Web3 solutions that get used by millions, but conversely do not cost millions. So let's get into it without further ado. And there we go. Perfect. So when we look at healthcare generally as a context, there are many issues that actually create an inaccessibility to healthcare, regardless of where you are geographically. Of course, we know in the short term, we have the looming recession, which results in high inflation and ultimately declining affordability. What we have seen in the past and what we do continue to see in the future, unfortunately, is a large disparity between access to healthcare and the resources that one has. Subsequently, there is declining trust in the transaction. Ultimately, when we look at healthcare, it is by definition a transaction between healthcare providers and recipients being the patients. And when we have declining trust, we have declining acknowledgement of the need for healthcare and ultimately declining engagement as well. At the end of the day, when we look at this as a transaction, we ultimately and very unfortunately see consumer dissatisfaction. So on to the next slide, please. Now, when we look at the world, healthcare is not a regional issue. It's not limited to the US, Canada, Argentina. It's not limited to any specific region. However, we see that healthcare is, of course, international. It is one of the few things in the world that is international. And when we look at the acute crises of inflation and recession, this will hurt most people. There is essentially nowhere in the world that this will not impact. When we see North America being the hardest hit by this as well, in addition to other countries, but ultimately, the key message here is that there is essentially nowhere to hide from this, and it will affect most people, unfortunately. Can we kindly move to the next slide? Perfect. Thank you. And when we look at patients as recipients and ultimately receivers of care, we need access, we need choices, and we need control. When we look at Web 3.0 and the advantages that it offers, it is pro-privacy, it is patient-driven with respect to autonomy of information, and it is built on a high infrastructure of trust. When we combine all of these, we're able to deliver in a Web3 manner, but simultaneously, we're able to actually build back the foundations of trust, privacy, and autonomy when it comes down to managing and transacting with healthcare data. If we could kindly move to the next slide. Now, this is a bit of an animated slide, so Alex, I may need your assistance to go through this in terms of transitioning. What I want to start with is actually define an open network compared to a closed healthcare system. When we look at closed healthcare systems, we ultimately see that every party operates in a silo, whether it's a patient, whether it's a physician, whether it's a third-party payer, whether it's a family member that wants to be kept up to date with a patient's healthcare information, or whether it's a social provision of healthcare, if it's a social worker, if it's a care coordinator. Everybody exists in their own bubbles, unfortunately. So ultimately, what we need to do is minimize our reliance on closed healthcare systems and shift towards open networks. So Alex, I'm going to kindly ask you to move through this animation in steps. So if you could kindly proceed to the next step. And as we go along, we'll see that we have our patient wallet. When we look at the care platform, because it is a Web 3.0 platform, every user, whether it's a physician, a patient, a third-party payer, ultimately has their own wallet. Now, this is their Web 3.0 browser through which they can access networks, and these open networks, I should say. So Alex, if you could kindly proceed. When we have our patient, let's say, for example, and please feel free to proceed as I'm speaking, Alex. When we have our patient Let's say, for example, they were to connect with a physician at their Care Wallet B. If they were to send a request for an appointment, and Alex, please feel free to proceed through the demo here. If they were to request a patient or an appointment with their physician, we also see that there are other players involved. Now, when we bring up Care Wallet C, this is an example of an open ABC network with 3 roles: patient, provider, and insurance company. Now, all of those 3 parties typically exist in silos in our current healthcare model. When we look at open networks, we want to see how can we actually trigger efficient communication between all 3 of these parties. So Alex, please feel free to proceed and click through the entire illustration completely right to the end, and I'll tell you when to stop. Just for the technical issues we were having, this would be much easier. Thank you so much. And I'll tell you when to stop. Kindly keep on going. Perfect. And once more. Perfect. Thank you. Stop there, Alex. Oh, if you could go back one. Thank you so much. That's perfect. So I'll just take a minute to explain this. So I know, unfortunately, due to the technical issues, we weren't able to go through it in step by step, but I'll cover it in a very sequential manner. So we have Care Wallet A. That is the patient. Now, in an open network, when the patient triggers a request to schedule an appointment with the physician, they receive an appointment confirmation. And you'll see this on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. The patient receives that confirmation for the appointment, but simultaneously, what also happens is the physician wallet will trigger a notification to Care Wallet C, which is the insurance company, that this patient now has an appointment at time X with me. The insurance company will then trigger a notification to the provider wallet, giving them payment for the percentage that's covered. And subsequently, as the last step, the insurance company wallet will send a notification to the patient of the benefits they get, and the patient can pay the remaining percentage to the insurance company. Now, last but not least, if you look at the top left corner of the screen, we can actually see that there's a care circle there. Now, as mentioned, when we look at an open network, we can actually see that there are other players that are typically involved in the healthcare delivery of a patient. And currently, as it stands, and given my own experience as well in medical school, there are often patients' family members, friends, or support providers that want to be involved. When we look at an open network, no longer do we exist or function in silos. We're able to keep all parties involved, regardless of what example we want to look at. And on top of that, we can also keep family members, social support, friends in the loop as well. Now, rather than having to communicate all of this information independently, separately, or as independent processes, in an open network offered by the Care platform, we can do all of this seamlessly and simultaneously at once. We can go to the next slide, please. Perfect. Thank you. Now, when we look at the Care platform in greater detail offered by SolveCare, what is it really? Let's do a bit of a deeper dive. So open networks are networks that consumers can trust and choose. And how can they do that on a Web 3.0 platform? To go through some of the vocabulary, let's get started as looking at our Care wallet. So as mentioned, the Care wallet is actually a DApp browser, which allows users to access and navigate through each of these networks. Care cards, as you'll see as we go lower through the slide here, are actually decentralized Web 3.0 applications that consumers can actually build, they can access, and they're used to share information, whether it's healthcare data, whether it's appointment confirmations. These care cards are actually shared between wallets to communicate certain information. Now, when we look at the Care node, we can actually see that this is the area on the blockchain where patient information is stored. Going back to the principle of Web 3.0, this is pro-privacy, pro-trust, and pro-autonomy. This is where the autonomy comes in. The patient actually has access to all of their information from cradle to grave, regardless of where they go in the world, regardless of how old they get, regardless of the different stage of healthcare they require, they will constantly have access to their information through this personalized care node. Second to last, we have the Care protocol. And ultimately, this is the blueprint, which allows the structure of the network to be created. It sets the rules for the structure. It sets the rules through which people can interact with one another, who can interact with who, what information can be shared with who, and so forth. And last but not least, we have, of course, at a bird's eye view, the Care network. Now, the Care network as a whole is deployed on blockchain. If we could please go to the next slide. Perfect. Now, when we look at Care Labs is the environment through which we actually permit our clients to build their own customized network. And the example that I use time and time again, I am a bit of a car enthusiast, so I do apologize. I will default to an automobile example. This is the area in which, if we were a car production company, Rather than taking what we gave you, we would give you keys to our factory, keys to our engineering lab to build the type of vehicle you like. So similarly, when we compare that to a Web 3.0 platform for healthcare, we are giving our clients and our users the keys to build their own Web 3.0 platform that they would like. We're giving you access to our technology infrastructure, and we're giving you access to every component to build your own customized solution. So when we look at the aspect of identity management in Web 3.0, through the care platform that's governed by the profile as well as the care card, we can see on the left side of the screen, that's a visual from the actual care wallet. When we look at relationship management, that's governed by the care protocol. And as mentioned, those are the blueprints through which the network is able to facilitate. When we look at transaction management, those are defined as care journeys within the care platform. And those are essentially pathways that individual users take. So whether it's a patient confirming an appointment, a patient sending information to their care team, those are individual care journeys that ultimately are management of transactions throughout that individual's care journey. When we look at record management, whether it's a record of healthcare data like an EKG, ultrasound, any type of blood work or any type of lab work, that is stored in the care vault, and it is permanently in the possession of the patient from cradle to grave. When we look at payment management, that is done by our native digital token called the Solve token. Now, the Solve token facilitates all transactions within the care platform. It is the mechanism through which payment is provided and received. Second to last, we have device management. Device management is done through our care ledger. Now, the care ledger is a chronological database that actually allows users or patients to keep track of all the information they've taken within their care wallet. So let's say, for example, I'm a corporate executive that travels from country to country for work, and I want to actually use my EKG to keep track of my atrial fibrillation diagnosis. I can actually take my EKG in my care wallet and have that information stored in my ledger, regardless of where I go, and share it with who I like. Last but not least, as mentioned, network management, when we look at a network as a whole, is governed by Care Labs. And Care Labs is the safe, risk-free environment that we offer to our clients to create those types of networks. Now, moving forward, when we look at Solve as the global healthcare payment system, we have a very brief overview of what Solve can be used for. There are 4 aspects through which Solve can be used for, and we'll move through this animation very quickly here to show you the 4 mechanisms through which Solve is used as. So Solve, as mentioned as previously, is our native digital token. That is the central payment mechanism that is permitted. Now, when we look at one of the uses, Solve can be used as gas. So when we see a gas fee is ultimately a fee associated with an individual transaction. So staying within the example of sharing an EKG, a gas fee can be used to actually identify processes that take place. So let's say, for example, I'm wallet A and I'm sending information to wallet B. That would require Solve as gas. It is a gas fee that facilitates the transaction to take place. Now, this transaction uses gas fees. They occur between wallets, and that is deducted from the balance of Solve in the individual wallet. Now, moving forward, we have some additional mechanisms through which Solve is used as well. And I'm going to get into those as soon as they pop up in the animation. Bear with us here. All right, Solve can also be used as a payment. So staying within healthcare, if we look at a mechanism of payment between provider and patient, we can actually see that Solve in the individual wallet of the patient can actually be used as a payment mechanism. So if a provider provides a bill to a patient, they can actually pay in real time, very expeditiously and conveniently, where the provider doesn't actually have to wait for payment. They are made and they are received in real time. When we look at redemption, well, actually, let's look at fees first. Apologies. When we look at fees, Solve can also be used as fees. So if we look at some of our previous partnerships that we've made with Uber with respect to non-emergency medical transport, Solve can also be used as a fee mechanism to actually pay the network sponsor, which would be Uber in this case. And last but not least, we also have redemption. So payment received between providers and patients can actually allow for redemption. So if providers are paid in Solve, they can actually redeem in Solve. So as we can see, Solve is quite versatile. It is quite diverse with respect to its applicability and its usability, but it is the driving force and the utility for the care platform. So again, when we come down to the aspects and the tenets of Web 3.0, we can see that the Care Wallet really drives home the issues of pro-privacy, pro-trust, and pro-autonomy. When we see closed healthcare systems, we typically don't see clear communication between parties involved. But referring to the slide on the screen, we can see in an open network, such as those given by the CARE platform, we can see clear communication and use cases between each of the individual roles. So I'll give you an example. When we look at the patient, a variety of tasks can be completed through the wallet. That includes enrollment, appointment confirmations, prescriptions, transportation such as NEMT, non-emergency medical transport such as our relationships with Uber, Health, and Lyft. We can also look at payments and wellness. When we look at providers, same thing, different side of the coin. We can also address appointments, eligibilities, referrals, billing, payments, care coordination, and so forth. When we look at administrators, we can see a variety of administrative tasks can also be tackled as well. Those include, but are not limited to, enrollment, billing, claims, premiums, benefits, life events, and so forth. Now, fraud is something that we can also identify here as well. Because every event is written on the blockchain and every event has a blockchain ID, there is a clear way to do a bit of a post-mortem on events that have taken place. So there is no longer any ambiguity or any other lack of clarity with respect to any claims that have been provided. And last but not least, we can also provide the issue of employers. We can look at employee wellness, we can look at enrollment in programs, we can look at premium utilization, we can look at rewards as well. So as mentioned, when we look at an open network, the applications are quite diverse and broad. So again, going back to the issue of the CARE platform, we see that new business models are required, similar to what the CARE platform offers. We also need global adoption, and the diversity and global usage of the Solve token allows for that. We need lower liability and lower risk, which is offered by CARE Labs. We need increased revenue, which we know is addressed by the Solve token, especially considering that Solve is used in a variety of ways and can actually drive revenue for our clients. And last but not least, we need lower risk. And again, that is offered through our safe space, which is the CARE Labs environment, where individuals and clients can actually author their own networks with minimal risk. So data must be secure, consumer controlled, and shareable. We have a very broad history of actually creating networks for our clients, and we continue to make a variety of networks. So starting off with the PRP, which stands for Provider Rewards Program, we had actually created a network in the past which addresses value-based healthcare payments using digital assets and a care wallet with transparency of earned and missed revenue for providers. We've addressed the area of non-emergency medical transport, which is NEMT. We've offered networks in the past which offer instant medical transportation services for Medicaid populations that eliminates fraud and administrative overhead. We've addressed networks that cater specifically to individual disease processes, such as our Diabetes Care Network, abbreviated as DCAN. This network was actually deployed to 25,000 patients across the state of Arizona, where we addressed issues of care coordination, management, and collaboration between provider, specialist, and care coordinator. Team Care was one of the networks that we deployed with Aon in the Philippines, looking at corporate well-being. We addressed the issue of remote employee well-being and engagement solution for multi-location employers, as well as tracking COVID-19 symptoms. And as we address the future, our focuses continue to be that in healthcare and beyond. We're looking into shared decision-making, which is SDM. Now, shared decision-making allows for patients and doctors and nurses to coordinate care and visits. We've seen through the research that shared decision-making is actually an advent in healthcare and is actually becoming a requirement in order to facilitate not only engagement, but success of patients in their healthcare journey. Now we have a bit of a brief video here, and what we're actually going to show is two aspects. We're going to show the ability to author your own network in seconds and actually create that as a network with minimal investment and essentially no risk at all. Now what we've done is we've outlined a sample of a remote patient monitoring network just as an example, and we want to give an indication of how that looks like with respect to the minimal cost and the minimal time investment allocated. What we've also done is giving you an example of how the Care Wallet can be used to actually define and collect that data. So for example, if we look at a device that's connected to the Care Wallet, such as the Cardia mobile device, which is a handheld EKG device, this information can be collected within your Care Wallet in a matter of seconds. You have an EKG and you can actually progress to actually share that information with the necessary individuals. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video. And what we're going to see here is actually the ability to create your own network looking at RPM. So on the left side of the screen, you actually see my individual Care Wallet. I'm going to access this safe authoring space called the Care Labs Imaginarium through a QR code explicitly associated with my wallet. And we can see on the right side of the screen, we have the ability to author care protocols. We can receive tutorials about Solve, and we can invite network participants. So what we're going to do in this demo is actually author our very own care protocol in a matter of seconds, focused on remote patient monitoring. So as you can see, the user here is looking through the Imaginarium. We have some sample networks set up for our users where they can actually get their feet wet and get a sense of what a network is. But let's go ahead and author our own. So we're going to go ahead and author our own care protocol and enter in the care network details. So first, what we have to do is define our network name. So in this case, the user is defining a network known as the Remote Patient Monitoring Network. They're going to then, in a matter of seconds, include a brief description of what this network aims to achieve in terms of the success criteria. So this is going to provide remote care to patients via remote patient monitoring. And also based on the author's preference here, we're going to enable physicians to actually send data as a prescription through devices such as the KardiaMobile device. Once they finish that brief description, they're actually able to geofence the actual network. So for example, if they wanted to have it in more than one country, they're eligible to do so here by setting that up as part of the protocol. But for this example, they're going to localize it in the United States. And when we look at the number of nodes, which associates the number of roles, they're going to keep it at 3. Next, when we look at the solve aspect of the protocol, we can see that there is a gas fee associated as 0.01 solve per event. They're going to save that and continue. And next, we're actually going to identify each of the roles here. So for the purpose of this example, there are going to be 3 roles, a simple ABC network, and that is the role of a patient, the role of a nurse, and the role of a physician. So what the user or author has to do in this case is identify all of the 3 roles, put in a brief description of what those roles do. So in the case of the patient actually records and sends the healthcare data to the care team. In the case of the nurse is going to receive and review the patient health data. And last but not least, we're going to have the physician. So once the description of the physician role is put in, we're more than halfway there to creating our own network. All right, so in this case, the user is identifying to receive, or the physician receives and reviews the patient data, and they can also send patient data as a prescription through the RPM network. All right, so once they save and continue, they're almost there. They need to then put in the individual roles for the journeys, the journey name, and then a brief description of the journey. So we're going to start with the patient and put in the associate journey name. In this case, it is going to be sending or submitting healthcare data to the care team. A brief description of that will follow. So collect and send medical data. We're going to add the second last role here, which is that of the nurse. And as you can see, the roles have already pre-populated based on the protocol that's already been defined so far. So the nurse is going to receive health data, and the description will be to receive and review the health data with the physician. All right, and last but not least, we have our physician. And the journey name will be to review the health data. And also, if needed, likely to send data as a prescription through the RPM network. And as we just enter in the last journey description here, we're essentially one step away of having our entire care protocol defined and published. So once we put in that last description of the physician journey description, we're good to go. We're going to save the care protocol. And we can see just in a matter of minutes, we have successfully created this care protocol. We have published it, and it is ready to be deployed for testing. Now, what this environment offers is the ability to join. So we can see that on my wallet on the left side, I had already joined as a patient. So you can see the invite code at the bottom of the screen has been used, and I can actually test submitting healthcare data. Now, with the remaining 2 codes for physician as well as nurse, I can invite other colleagues, other friends to test this with me. So in a matter of minutes, not only have I actually set up my own care protocol looking at an RPM network, I also have invite codes created by the Care Labs Imaginarium to actually go about and test this type of information sharing within my Web 3.0 browser. All right, and what we're going to look at next here is just an example of data that can be collected within the Care Wallet. So here we have a phone in which someone's going to access their actual Care Wallet. We can see the networks they've joined, and when they click on devices, they can click on their personal EKG device, which is this Cardia mobile device. And in real time within their wallet, they're going to actually start collecting an EKG. Now, the reason we're showing this is to give an example of the type of healthcare data that can be shared in an example of an RPM network. Now, the fact that we're able to collect valuable healthcare data, such as an EKG within the wallet, allows this information to be shared on the blockchain. So based on the parameters of the previous network that was created, this type of information can be shared because it's saved in the ledger of every single wallet and has the ability to be shared, as you can see on the bottom left side of the screen, with other Care Wallet users. In this case of the previous example being the nurse, as well as the physician. So that's a very brief example of what you can do with the Care Labs environment. I mean, it's the tip of the iceberg. The sky is the limit. It's accessible to any type of industry. It only takes minutes. It's risk-free. There's no investment, and it can be done in a matter of minutes. Now, when we look at the actual aspect of open digital networks and how they are the future of healthcare, again, let's go back and summarize the tenets of a Web 3.0 platform, which are pro-privacy, pro-trust, and interoperability. That ultimately is defined as being consumer controlled, pro engagement, allows for global adoption, minimal liability and risk, and increased compliance. The Care platform is able to address each of those 3 tenets, and we've seen so by some of the examples that we just covered a minute ago. So really, when we look at the summary of SolveCare and the Care platform, our mission ultimately is to make healthcare work better, more efficiently for our parents, our children, and society as a whole. And we look at our vision, as mentioned through the Care platform, is to allow healthcare to be delivered to consumers that utilizes digital health networks at lower costs, lower risk, and minimal amount of time investment. We have, of course, been around for quite some time. We've been recognized in a variety of areas. We've won an abundance of awards through our Care platform. Just recently, I was actually in Toronto last week, where we actually won an award by the Blockchain Research Institute, as well as the associated partners for the revolutionary enterprise solution. So we are being acknowledged. We are ready in the market. Adoption has been quite diverse. I finished a whirlwind tour of the United States as well as Canada this year. And I can tell you that adoption is just growing and growing. So we're very much looking forward to the future and building on the success of the past. A little bit about our company and a little bit about our leadership as well. We are led by our CEO, Mr. Pradip Goel. He has a very well-decorated history in healthcare administration internationally. He's worked with the Obama administration, the George Bush administration. He was previously the CIO of Blue Cross and Blue Shield in North Dakota. Internationally, we are quite well spread out. We have more than 100 employees worldwide. We have more than 12 offices around the world. There are 80 plus countries in which the Care Wallet, our Web 3.0 browser, is available. And we're proud to say that we have a digital community of greater than 50,000 individuals across the world. So in summary, that is the Care platform. That is a little bit about SolveCare. I was delighted to be here today, and I'm so happy we got a chance to review the Care platform and how we can actually author Web 3.0 networks that can be used by millions but do not cost millions. Thank you for your time.